greatest work is just about completed. One more adjustment, and that's boom pop! It worked!
Whoa. Did something weird just happen to my voice? Why do I... Ooh, nice lab coat. Anyway, there's this space on my shelf, and I know exactly what I want to go there. Before Dexter's Laboratory became one of the most loved cartoon characters of the 90s, he started out like this. This is a clip from the original student film that became the basis for Dexter's Laboratory. And the story of how Dexter went from that to this?
For fun, visit Burger King, because now on every big kid's meal you can get one of 8 new Dexter's Laboratory toys. Rev up a watery vortex and see Dee Dee do the hypno dance and bravely flirt with danger. You can experiment with all 8 toys. Dexter's Lab is
It's pretty interesting.
Burger King.
Before I get ahead of myself, I'll need some references and a concept sketch. Dexter was created by Genndy Tartakovsky as part of his final project at Cal Arts. The character of Dee Dee came first. The lanky ballerina needed an opposite to play off of, so Tartakovsky drew Dexter, at first as a small, sturdy rectangle. Now that I know what I'm making, I'm moving over to Blender to start modeling. I'm going to start with the basic shapes, then add detail, then remove some of that detail because I know my 3D printer can only handle so much. In 1986, media mogul Ted Turner purchased the MGM Animation Library. That included many classic cartoons like Looney Tunes, Popeye, and Tom and Jerry. Ted started airing these on the variety of television channels he already owned. In 1991, he did the same with Hanna-Barbera. Scooby-Doo, the Flintstones, Yogi Bear, the Jetsons, and pretty much any other non-Disney cartoon icon you can think of, conceived before 1980, was now under one roof. These acquisitions opened the door for the possibility of the first television network to air cartoons 24/7. In 1992, Cartoon Network launched, and soon they were ready to experiment with new original programming. I want to take a quick detour for a second and talk about the state of animation at the time. The 1980s to the early 1990s is considered the dark age of animation, which I know sounds a little dramatic, but relative to the golden age and the silver age that came before it, that's pretty accurate. There was a heavy focus on commercialism. Specifically, cartoons needed to be made fast and en masse, leading to cheap-looking and feeling TV. I'm talking about He-Man, the Smurfs, Transformers, and Care Bears, shows that had a single goal: make money, typically through unrelenting toy tie-ins. All the parts are printed. Altogether, this used about 240 grams of filament and took just under 21 hours to print. But it all went smoothly on the first try. There were absolutely no failures. To prep these parts for paint, I'm going to start sanding at 120 grit, then fill anywhere that needs it with some Bondo putty, then a quick once-over with 180, followed by a light coat of filler primer. And that's going to do most of the work of hiding those layer lines. I'll finish it all off with some 220 sanding and a final coat of primer. dramatic change happened at the end of the 80s and the start of the 90s. Cartoons started to grow up a little bit. The 90s saw a turn into the cynical, into the pessimistic. There was a building feeling of disillusionment in the world, and cartoons began to reflect that. I'm talking about Ren and Stimpy, Beavis and Butthead, and, of course, The Simpsons. Cartoons started to push boundaries and were more and more not just for kids. From this dark age comes a renaissance. Not to say that the commercialism of it all stopped or even slowed, but we start to see cartoons talking about real issues. We start to see diversity, and we start to see what cartoons look like and sound like when they're written for humans, not just consumers. In cartoons for children, we start to see intricate storylines and sophisticated humor, pop culture references and jokes that you have to ask your parents to explain. And it's at the very start of this renaissance that we meet Dexter.
That
What happened? What was I saying? Painting. Right. I'm going to paint these parts. Luckily for me, Dexter's color palette isn't very complicated. Back to Dexter. In 1992, Fred Seibert was president of Hanna-Barbera Cartoons. This was before the official Cartoon Network animation studio opened, and he wanted to make really good cartoons. He went to the Turner executives and pitched a wild concept focused on short films. Rather than risking their whole budget and a year of production time on just 2 new shows, why not use this new network as an experiment? It would cost the same and allow Cartoon Network to test 3 new potential original programs every week. They would package 3 7-minute shorts into an episode, resulting in 48 brand new cartoons. And most importantly, they would let the creatives have control. This was an entirely radical approach. In theory, these animators would have way more creative freedom than anyone had ever had in broadcast cartoons before.
All in all, it was an incredible process with amazing results. 5,000 pitches begat 48 shorts and 7 series. No studio had attempted this scale in 30 or 40 years. Each creator was treated just so, as a filmmaker, not a factory worker with hands to do the bidding of management. And though our ends were definitely commercial, I think the results were almost like art films. Not too many voices in the mix, just one creator or creating team, one film.
Fred Seibert has documented the process of getting that idea approved by executives and finding the creative talent to make it happen on his blog from 2006. It's a fascinating story, and I'm including the archived links to the posts I can find in the description. You should absolutely go and read it, but for now, I'm going to skip to the fun part. This risky idea paid off in the form of the What a Cartoon Show, later renamed the Cartoon Show. Even riskier, the network let viewers call in and vote for their favorite shorts.
Hey, it's time for the World Premiere Toon Countdown Call-In Show. For the first time ever, Cartoon Network is showing all 18 World Premiere Toons of 1995, back to back to back. Your job is simple. Watch the cartoons, call the 800 number, and vote for your favorite. Each toon has its own code, so pay attention. 3 hours, 18 cartoons. Whoa, Nelly! It's the first annual World Premiere Toon Countdown Call-In Show, happening right now, right here on Cartoon Network.
The experiment resulted in some of the freshest cartoons in years. What a Cartoon was the launching pad for the Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Cow and Chicken, and of course, Dexter's Laboratory. Not to mention, it kicked off the careers of some of animation's heavy hitters for the next 2 decades. Tartakovsky went on to make Samurai Jack, Craig McCracken directed 4 full seasons of Powerpuff Girls, and the first ever look at Seth MacFarlane's Family Guy characters was as a What a Cartoon short. In an interview with Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft, Genndy mentions that he never felt like he had the same chops as the Disney animators, and that his style was just a little rougher. More a fan of Max Fleischer than Walt Disney. I think this absolutely comes through when watching early episodes of Dexter's Lab. It has that rough, imperfect, dynamic quality that would come to define some of the early animations at the network. Watching the show now as an adult is wild. Even by early 90s cartoon standards, it was weird. Dexter's Laboratory had an axe-headed kaiju, beard fights, flying sombrero spaceships, every kind of robot, and thinly veiled references to not-so-kid-friendly stuff. Not to mention the shows within the show, Dial M for Monkey and the Justice Friends. Every episode contained 3 fantastically delivered shorts, each ending in a typically ridiculous punchline. Dexter's Lab had it all. A unique look and compelling characters, fantastic science but applied to relatable kids' problems, like how do I keep my sibling out of my room? How do I catch Santa? What do I do if I don't feel cool enough? And it was genuinely funny. And maybe that's part of why Dexter's Laboratory was such a hit. In addition to the genius animation, epic score, clever writing, and hilarious voice acting, it had something for everybody. Whether you felt more like Dexter, the serious, calculating, hyper-focused maker, or the carefree, lanky, curious, often aimless Dee Dee, or both, you knew that when you heard this theme song start, you were in for a hilarious 22 minutes. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to print your own Dexter, I've linked the file below, along with some of the books, interviews, and videos I watched while making this project. And lastly, I am open for commissions, so if you're watching this and you have a project that you're interested in bringing to life, feel free to email me. I'll include it in the description below.